Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be reviewing the Urban Decay Full Spectrum Eyeshadow Palette. So I purchased this palette at Sephora, but I believe it's also available at Ulta and the Urban Decay website, but I will link below any other websites or any other places that I see this palette if you are interested in purchasing it. So it's very sturdy, nice packaging. It is kind of a big, slightly bulky palette, but that's okay. It's got the beautiful Urban Decay logo there in rainbow. So pretty. I just love how they did that, and it says full spectrum, and it's got this kind of whatever you call that right there. Mine's full of fingerprints already because that's just my life. And it's just magnetized, but it's kind of hard to open sometimes. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So then you open it up and ta-da! You have 21 beautiful, beautiful rainbow shades. Now there are actually a few shades in here that have appeared in other palettes. I'm gonna get to that later, but so that's why I'm not saying that they're all like original shades, because they're technically not, but they kind of are, but they're not. Anyways, so like I said, I'll get into that later. Sorry about the glare. There's my ring light. So right here was a brush, which I'll insert a picture of it. It's a double-ended brush, and I do like it. I always like Urban Decay brushes, and I always love it when palettes come with brushes and mirrors. Those two things just really up the quality and the grade that I'm going to give the palette, because to me, if they add those things, it shows that they really put in the extra effort. And if it's a high-end palette that I'm paying, you know, over $50 for, that makes it a lot more worth it. Like I mentioned in the review that I did on the Kat Von D Metal Matte palette, this is a true rainbow palette. That one I didn't consider a true rainbow palette because to me it didn't have enough of the rainbow colors in it, although it's a very colorful palette. This to me is a true rainbow palette because you have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, and everything in between. Black and white, basically. I mean, this is kind of not really black, but white. I mean, but to me, it touches all the bases to make it a true rainbow palette. And so I was super excited for this. I missed out on their Spectrum palette last year. When this came out, I was like, well, I have to get the new Urban Decay eyeshadow palette. You know, I need my fix. So that was why I got this. And also just the fact that it's such a pure, beautiful rainbow palette really made me excited. I really wanted to get my hands on this, so I was super excited to get my hands on this. I really like the package. It's nice if you're doing your makeup, you know, because it holds itself up. You don't have to hold it up, so I guess that's like a good thing. I am wearing all shadows from this palette on my face today, minus one neutral shadow, because I tried so hard to use only shadows from this palette. That was my goal. I set out. I even like did the look, and then I just didn't like it, so I had to kind of wipe away some of the shadow and put in a neutral shadow just in my upper brow bone here, because I just couldn't quite handle that much color on my face. It just didn't look right. I mean, this is a lot of color and I love it, but that was just a little bit too much. So so that was just my personal experience. I had to use one neutral eyeshadow to get a complete look, but I don't think that's unusual because there's no neutrals in here. It's like they don't even try. You know, it's a rainbow palette. That's what you're buying. You're not buying an everyday palette that can get you a bunch of neutral everyday looks. You know, you're buying a rainbow palette. So now I want to go through and swatch every single shade. I was going to just insert the swatches and talk about them, but as I was doing them, I realized like the thing about this palette is that each shade is very different from each other. Some of the shades are really fantastic and some of the shades are really disappointing. So I wanted to just live swatch them all for you and show you exactly how they look, maybe how they build up a little bit, and just give you a good feel for it. I know that's going to probably take quite a bit of time, so I'm going to get into that right now, and then I'll give you my review sort of opinion on the palette after the swatches. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first shadow here, which is called Alchemy, then Gossip, and Paranoia. Wow, it's hard to read sideways. Okay, I'm going to show you those up close, and I don't know if you can see on camera, but this one right here shows a lot of powder on my fingers. So just noting that, and then I'm going to swatch them. So they're really pretty. There's no doubt about that. These shades are beautiful. Alchemy, this one is what I'm wearing on my outer corner right now. It looks a lot darker in the pan than it does swatched. And it takes a lot of building up to reach that level of opacity. So that's just something I wanted to notice. And that is something that I noticed with a lot of the shadows in this palette, that they just don't look like they look in the pan when you put them on your eyes or when you swatch them, and that's just a little bit disappointing. Next we have Warning, Seas, and Jones. Those don't show very much powder, but again, they're not super pigmented. They're just not super in your face. All right, so There you go. So this one, Warning, is so pretty. I love this one. This one looks very similar to how it looks in the pan. This one, this bright red Seas shade, is really, really almost translucent, like really thin, not very pigmented. And then the Jones shade is a nice sort of shimmery gold. I hope you can see that. I'll insert swatches of any ones that don't show up on camera too, just so you guys can see up close. But I wanted you to see the live swatches because I feel like it'd be really easy to like build these up and use a wet base and make them look really good. But I wanted you to see the real swatches of just like, you know, a couple of back and forth motions with my finger and then on my skin. Like that's what I wanted you guys to see. Okay, next I'm gonna swatch Midnight Blaze, Calavera, and Gold Mine. Now, with Gold Mine, I can see right off the bat there's a lot of powder and chunky glitter in that one. Now, it's super shimmery, almost like a metallic, so it doesn't surprise me that there's that, but you will see in the swatch, hopefully you will see in the swatch. Midnight Blaze is a really beautiful sort of greenish black with gold glitter in it. Calavera is this really nice bright yellow that, similar to like when you have a yellow marker or crayon, like it doesn't show up that much, that's just how yellows are, but this one is super nice and beautiful and pigmented. I really like it, and it mixes really well with other colors. If you want to bring sort of that yellow warm tone out of another shadow, this is a really good shadow for that. I did that with which one was it? Alchemy on my outer corner here, and my lower lash line too, so that's a really pretty one. And then Gold Mine, that was disappointing to me. I'm wearing it on my inner corner and I made it work, and it's not unworkable, but I felt like it was just really, I felt like it was really chunky and glittery, and it just didn't have enough of like a substance, like didn't have enough base to be a pretty color. So it really disappointed me. That one is one of the ones that I was the most disappointed in because it looks like it's gonna be such a pretty like buttery yellow shimmery shade, and it's just not. Next we have 100, Hatter, and Mean. 100, Hatter, and Mean. Hatter, you can see, not very pigmented, really pretty color, but just not, the pigmentation's just not there. Mean is beautiful, beautiful like lime green shimmery. I love that one. That's really pretty. I want to do a look with that one. And then 100 is the other color that I used in my look today, which I have kind of up here and on my lower lash line. And I really love that one. It's really pretty and pigmented. I like that it's not super opaque in one swatch just because it's a darker color, so that way I can kind of thin it out like I did if I want to, and then I can also build it up. I'm gonna swatch 100 one more time just so you can see how it builds up. So you can see if you need to, if you want to, you can really build up that color a little bit more. I'll try that with Hatter as well, see what that does. Okay, so that's building up, so that's good. I would hope so. There, that looks way prettier. Okay, so it just takes a few swipes, but I wanted to show you that with one swatch, it's just not quite there, but it's workable. Next we have Minx, Blindsided, and Metamorphosis. Minx gives you a ton of pigmentation right off the bat, super beautiful. I'll try building it up again as well. There's Blindsided, and then Metamorphosis. It's such a pretty color, it just doesn't show up. There's a little bit more, such a periwinkle. I love periwinkle blue, it's so pretty. So yes, so those are those. And then we have Delirious, Sketch, and Faded, which is very faded. Look at that. Faded is this really pretty purple shade with gold glitter in it. It just doesn't show up on the skin. To me, that's kind of a wasted shade because it's just not showing up. It just looks muddy, you know? Then lastly, we have Platonic, Iced, and Bump. So Bump is your pure white matte shade, and Bump is actually the only matte, completely matte shade in this palette. All the other ones have a little bit of shimmer or glitter or a lot of shimmer or something in them. Then Iced is this super beautiful, it's like a silver, but it's almost got a hint of pinkish to it. It's really, really pretty. And then Platonic is a closest to black that's in this palette, with lots of shimmer and sort of silverish sparkles. So one other thing that I want to talk about before I give you my final thoughts are the duplicates in this palette. There are some shades in here that are also in other palettes. The first one that I caught was this green shade right here called Hatter. And Hatter is also in this Alice Through the Looking Glass eyeshadow palette that, when did this come out? Earlier 2016, I believe. And this is Hatter right here. I'm gonna swatch these two next to each other. And then also Metamorphosis is also in the Full Spectrum palette. So those two both came from this palette, sort of. Well, I'll show you the swatches. I'll let you decide. Here's Hatter from the Full Spectrum palette. Here's Hatter from the Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass palette. Full Spectrum, Through the Looking Glass. They look like different shades of green to me. You guys let me know what you think. But yeah. Yeah, they look a little bit different to me. Then here's Metamorphosis from the Full Spectrum palette, and here's from the Alice Through the Looking Glass palette. Okay, Full Spectrum, Through the Looking Glass. These ones look pretty much the same. I feel like the texture is different. I feel like the one from the Through the Looking Glass palette is more powdery, whereas this one is smoother for some reason, but I don't know. But other than that, the shades look pretty comparable, so that's cool. The other shade that I found in another palette is this shade Alchemy right here. Here is the Alchemy shade right here in this Vice palette. Now, I'm gonna swatch these next to each other. Just wait. Okay, here's Alchemy from the Full Spectrum palette. Here's Alchemy from the Vice palette. Full Spectrum, Vice. That's a big difference. Not only the shades are different, but the pigmentation is so much stronger in the shade from the Vice palette. The opacity is so much stronger. I mean, I just feel like it's just a better shadow. But I don't know. Truth be told, I don't love this palette, and I don't know that I am gonna get a ton of use out of it, because most of the shadows I feel like are not as good as a lot of other colorful shadows I have, especially by Urban Decay. I feel like Urban Decay can do better. Urban Decay's Electric palette, all of the Vice palettes, the Alice Through the Looking Glass palette, even their Moon Dust palette, like all of those palettes by Urban Decay are so much better than this one. And I feel really bad saying that because I love the colors and I was so excited, and I hate bashing and blah blah blah, but I just gotta be honest with you guys. I just don't feel like this one is quite there. Now, if you don't have any other rainbow palettes or any other colorful palettes, this is a really good value, just because you do get a lot of colors for the money. You get 21 different shades and they're all rainbows. So I love that about this palette. I love the fact that you're not getting like a handful of neutrals like you do with the Vice palettes or anything like that. Like, you're getting all rainbow shades and they all complement each other really well. Like, you could make a true rainbow eye with these shadows because they're all like, the tones flow together really well, and they just picked out the colors very well. It's just the quality is not up to standard, up to Urban Decay standards that I hold them to. But the shadows are definitely workable. They're not poor quality. They're not like drugstore bad quality. Not that all drugstore shadows are bad, they're not, but you know what I mean. Like, they're not super terrible. They will show up. They just take a little bit of work, and they're not as good as a lot of other Urban Decay shadows that I have. Okay, so if I have to give this palette a grade, I'm gonna give it a C. It's average. It's definitely not an ace, and it's not a fail because I do love the look that I have today, and I do think you can get a lot of great looks out of this, tons of great looks out of it. It's just gonna be a little bit more work than it should be, and I just know that Urban Decay can do better. So that's my grade on this palette. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts if you've tried it, if you've swatched it, if you've seen other people try it. Let me know what you think. I hope that I'm not like offending anybody or anything. I just feel like I have to be honest. That's why I do reviews here on YouTube, you know? It's just to be honest. So yes, I give the Urban Decay Full Spectrum a C. And I was so excited for that one. I really like wanted that to be a favorite, but it just didn't work out. Alright guys, that is it for this review. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. That helps other people find me in the YouTube world. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you always, and I will talk to you again very soon.